welcome, Gabriel from Port Finance. I'm glad you had time to visit us today, this fine Friday in December.
Thank you so much for having me here.
And so, for everybody who's listening now, live and also listening to the recording in the future, this will be a 1 hour long session approximately. And the first 30-ish minutes, me and Gabriel here is going to talk a little bit about Port Finance, mSOL, Marinade, markets, lending, and so on. And then the last 30 minutes, we'll have the AMA session, so to say. So that's when we'll bring up some questions from the chat in the AMA with Port channel. So you can already ask your questions if you have any cool questions. And if you guys joined the last AMA we had with Jupiter, you guys will recall that the one who asked a question that Gabriel from Port thinks is the best will win a prize. And the prize will be 100 Marinade tokens. So in the end of the AMA session, Gabriel's going to pick the best question. So try to think of something smart when you ask that question here. Or entertaining. I don't know. We'll see. And then we'll also do we'll fun little giveaway for the Marinaders specifically. And this is some NFTs from some friends of ours called Lifinity. And they're pretty cool, these NFTs, actually. I'm going to, during the session here, try to show you guys how one of these NFTs looks like. So that's something we got looking forward to as well. And also, before we get going, I also want to remind you all that we have the 5th and final wave in the retroactive claim of Marinade tokens up and running now. So don't forget to go to the website and claim your Marinade tokens if you used Marinade prior to October this year. And fun fact, this final wave has a bunch of extra tokens because we reached a stake milestone or TVL milestone back then. So if you used Marinade prior to October, you should be able to enjoy pretty good retroactive reward there. So let's get going with this then. And Gabriel, so from Port Finance, one of my favorite lending platforms in the Solana ecosystem. So glad you could come here. And would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, your background and what led you to be involved in Port Finance? What's the background story?
Yeah, so I'm coming from a computer science background. So previously I went to Imperial College London. And then I get to involve in DeFi in the DeFi summer. And then mostly doing Ethereum-based yield farming. And then towards the end of the year, I found out about the Ethereum through FTX IEO. And then I found out about Solana and how it's different from Ethereum. And that got me interested. And I get the chance to work on some open source projects related to Solana. And then in the early this year, I found out Solana DeFi seems pretty early, and there is a lot of things that we can build on Solana. And then we decided to work together with my colleagues in London. And then we decided to build a lending protocol. And then right now we are live on Solana. Currently we support 13 different assets, including LP tokens from Saber and also, of course, stable coins and Marinade, SOL, etc.
Cool. Yeah, you got a pretty substantial number of assets there available on your lending platform. So what was it with the lending that? What got you into the lending aspect? Because when it comes to the DeFi Legos, there's so much to choose from. You obviously made an incredible job with Port Finance. I'm just curious why you guys chose that route. Because if I'm not mistaken, you could have picked another route.
Yeah, I think when we started out, there was no lending protocol that's available on mainnet, except for Mango, I think. And then Mango is more geared towards leverage trading at that time. So we thought it will be a good addition to the ecosystem if there is a lending protocol that supports various different assets. So that's why we decided to build one.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Well, nice choice. I like your choice because I'm enjoying port finance myself.
Thank you.
So we actually have a pretty interesting story between Port and Marinade, because you guys were the first lending platform that listed mSOL, and your TVL grew quite substantially when that happened. And the question related to this then is, it wasn't quite a ride with mSOL, right? And but how would you guys, from your perspective, as the operators behind this platform, see mSOL and the use of mSOL in a lending context? Do you have any comments on mSOL's use there?
Yeah, I think supporting mSOL is one of the key decisions that drives up the TVLs. And I'm super glad that we decided to support it and become the first protocol that supports mSOL. And at the time that we supported, there's no price feed for mSOL. So like initially, we actually used the SOL price feed because at the beginning, the SOL and mSOL exchange rate was quite close. Right now, we switched to the mSOL price feed. And then when we just supported, we've seen a lot of depositors coming in, and then each times when we open up the port dashboard, we see the TVLs growing. Right now, the mSOL is still the second largest in terms of USD values. And we are super glad to support mSOL and its adoption.
Yeah, it's a pretty substantial amount of mSOL over there. What would you say is the most common use of mSOL on your lending platform? Is it the collaterals, or people loaning it, or how does it look from your perspective?
I think from our perspective, most users use it as collateral in order to borrow other assets, notably the stablecoins USDC. And I think by doing so, they are able to, for example, gain more leverage to buy some more, say, SOL, and then deposit and change it to mSOL and deposit again. Or they can borrow stablecoins to farm elsewhere, say on Saber or in other or Mercurials, etc.
Oh yeah, that's literally how I personally use my mSOL. If I use a lending platform, it's utilizing as a collateral. It's pretty good for that. Increasing value in each epoch, right?
Also the deposit, since mSOL value keeps increasing, so your risk of liquidations actually kind of reduces as time goes.
Yeah, precisely. I think that's one of the key aspects of utilizing mSOL as collateral. But for you guys listening, keep in mind, this is not a financial advice or anything. We're just discussing like possible use here. You got to do your own research, and you have to calculate in detail of any risks and so on. So that's important to mention. But yeah, cool. I'm really glad to see that the mSOL is still used a lot on port finance and is retaining its position over there. It just goes to show the value of what we just discussed, like a little bit reducing the risks as mSOL increases in value over time, one could say perhaps. Cool. So I actually saw a pretty interesting update from you guys recently, by the way, I would like to ask you about. And that is, you're doing a partnership with Insurance.io, some kind of insurance setup. Would you like to explain a little bit more, like what insurance means for you guys and how that helps your operations?
Yeah, I think insurance is super important DeFi, but then it's a bit underused. So if you compare the total TVL of entire DeFi versus how much of that value is insured, you'll find that most of the TVLs are not insured. Then if you look at, say, traditional financial world, when you deposit your fund into a bank, I think most countries have different kind of schemes that protect your fund through some like official insurance. Then in DeFi, this is quite hard to find. So that is why we partner with InsureAce, so that user will be able to purchase cover, and that cover will protect the user in case of any fund losses. I think right now the coverage premium is 3%, and I think it will be quite useful for more conservative depositors. And InsureAce, they provide services on Ethereum and also provide coverage for Solana projects, including Ethereum and also Radium. So it's a good place to go.
Also, they have a pretty decent standing there in the Ethereum space, I suppose, then.
Yes, that is correct. They actually sell more coverage, I think, than Nexus Mutual. They are kind of the underdogs initially.
Whoa, really?
Mutual is has first mover advantages, but then as they grow, they actually become quite popular on the Ethereum space.
Oh, that's very intriguing. I did not know that. Everybody, I guess, knows about the most famous Nexus Mutual, like the most famous insurance setup on Ethereum. So, but these guys are actually, okay, they're catching up.
Yeah, and also I think the team behind InsureAce is launching a product that's dedicated for the Solana blockchain, and should have more updates in the coming year. Okay,
that's good. Personally, when I use a DeFi platform, seeing some kind of insurance policies gives me a really good impression. I think that for me, it's really important. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And I saw that's really good news when I saw that update myself. So that's cool. I hope to see more interesting insurance opportunities appearing on Solana as we move forward. It's a super important aspect of the DeFi Lego, so to say, right? What do you say, Gabriel?
Yeah, I think insurance provides a peace of mind for a lot of users. And then I think right now, I think on Solana there's no native insurance platform. So going forward, I believe there will be, there could be multiple, similar to Ethereum.
Yeah, cool. And there's other interesting updates as well. And I guess this is tied to, might be two questions at once. But I saw that you guys announced on the 1st of December that you're doing an ecosystem fund to support people integrating and building on Port Finance. Connected to that update, what would be like the long-term goals of Port Finance? What do you guys aim for? Because obviously this ecosystem fund that you announced is part of your grander plan, right? So where would you guys see Port Finance be in a year, based upon this ecosystem fund? Because you obviously want to promote use of Port Finance using that.
Yeah, I think one of the core value proposition for DeFi is composability. So that is the main reason behind the whole ecosystem fund. We hope that more protocol can integrate with us, and then they can utilize the underlying liquidities, be it lend, borrow, or both. So the first partner that we work with is Pole Finance, Pole Aggregator. They actually help users repeatedly deposit and borrow using Port. And then because of the liquidity mining incentives, users are able to do that. So basically that provides leverage. And then they also provide liquidity incentive in terms of their native tokens. And then we also, by working with them, we have extracted a lot of useful packages. So we published 2 crates that for other protocols, if they want to integrate with us, they can actually use. So one is based on the Anchor framework, where a developer can use the Anchor CPI call. The other one is based on the native Solana code. Then we have also published the Port SDK. If developers want to interact with Port Finance using TypeScript, they can do so using the Port SDK. And I think going forward in a year, we really hope that some more exciting protocols can be built on top of us. Some obvious idea would probably be rebalancing among different lending protocols, say rebalance between Port, Mango, Solend, or Larix. And then help user find the best, the one with the highest yield, or alternatively, say, tokenize users' positions into, say, different tokens. And there are a lot of use cases that you can do if you want to integrate with us.
Oh, that's really interesting. So if I understood you correctly, I could basically provide collateral to Port, and I will get a token in return, and I would be able to utilize this token representing my collateral elsewhere.
Yeah, right now, say if you deposit mSOL into Port, you can get Port mSOL, and then you can use that token elsewhere. Say a concrete use case will be if you deposit USDC, you get back Port Finance USDC. You can then provide liquidity in the Saber Port USDC, Port USDT pool, and then you get additional Saber in return as liquidity mining incentive.
Oh gosh, well that's awesome, honestly. And, and I also think about this conspiracy meme, when it comes to, I'm gonna send that in the chat here. Like when it comes to the DeFi Legos, like after like 15 layers of your DeFi strategy, you're gonna look like that guy in the meme I just shared in the chat. It's like. But okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. So when it comes to like this possible future integrations and so on, which one would you personally look forward to the most?
I think right now we are working with some lending optimizer. So basically it helps rebalance between different lending protocols. I think that will be quite valuable because it acts basically like a yearn on Solana. So it helps user find the best place for getting the yields.
Okay, interesting. Well, I personally look forward to see that happening because I can definitely understand the benefit of having a solution like that. That's really cool.
Yep.
Well, we're talking about these long-term things, so I might as well throw this one in as well. And would it be interesting to hear from your perspective as operating a lending platform, how you guys think that a bear market would affect Port and its use. Have you guys contemplated that? Do you have a strategy for that, perhaps? What's your take on a bear market in a lending platform context?
Yeah, I think what we observe is in the bull market, the stablecoin utilization rate is super high. So a ton of people borrow stablecoins, gain leverage, or do yield farming. But right now, if you look at the Port lending rate, it's actually relatively low. I think we are kind of in a perhaps a mini bear market, given the recent crashes. But then I think we are quite well prepared for the bear market, mostly because we are quite well funded, and then we are also recently closed a strategic round with some leading investors. So in terms of funding, I think we are quite prepared. And then also, I think in terms of products, in the bear market, we can actually perhaps spend more time and focus more on improving the product itself. In the bull market, we also get some kind of distracted to look at the market to see if, say, the tokens is going up or going down, if Solana is going up or going down. But in the bear market, you can just sit down and write code and build stuff.
Oh, okay. So in a bear market, there's actually less stress and better focus on building. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think compared to a bull market, yeah, I think it will probably give us more time to actually sit down to think about how to write write contract, and then how to improve the user experience, how to make this more user friendly, how to improve the user journey, and things like that.
Yeah, it definitely calms everybody down a little bit when a bear market hits, so to say. I myself have been in crypto since about 2016, so I've definitely seen that happening in the past. I can actually see some benefits for builders when it comes to bear market as well. But yeah, you're saying that we're in a mini bear market. That makes me a little bit edgy, though. I hope it's just a temporary thing, and things looks brighter when we get closer to Christmas.
Yeah, I certainly hope it will get back in Christmas time.
Yeah, so about the bear market. So what's your take? Why are we in a mini bear market then, in your perspective? What happened? Everything looked so good. Everybody was talking about Bitcoin to 100K, that meme. And then where are we now? What happened?
I think in general, we have seen Solana crashes a bit, and then Bitcoin also crashes slightly. So I'm not sure what will happen. On the Solana side, I think because of Solana crashes a bit, other tokens also kind of goes down together with Solana because of this beta. But I can't say what will happen in the future. But right now, it feels like could be in a mini bear market. Just personal opinion.
Yeah, well, it kind of might look like that. Indeed, things are cooling off a little bit. Personally, I just think it's healthy. Nothing can just go straight up, and we need to give some room and space for onboarding new users too, right? So,
yep.
Okay, and so we're still talking about this like a lot of, like long-term perspectives of things. And I saw in some context, and I actually don't recall where I saw it, but probably from some update from you guys, and I heard that you're planning to become a DAO. And that makes me really intrigued because we're working hard with making the Marinade DAO happen. So would you like to explain a little bit more about that, like your ideas around the DAO for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's super important for Port to become a community-owned protocol so that the token holders can actually decide on the future direction and also say the reward distribution and also what kind of features we should support. Currently, we are working closely with Saber team to implement an on-chain voting mechanism. Right now, our goal is to implement a structure that's more similar to Curve. So the user who locks up their tokens will be able to gain voting powers. And the longer user lock up their tokens, the more voting powers they get, because it shows that they are long-term aligned with the protocols. And then after implementing that, we'll first transfer the treasury fund under governance so that token holders can decide what's the best way to utilize the treasury fund. And then moving forward, we will have other key decisions that will be made via governance voting, including what new assets we should support and how should the port liquidity mining incentive be distributed among different assets. And then what are the new features that we should implement going forward to make users' life easier. And we are looking to get that done by end of this year. So users should be able to at least have some utility with tokens.
Whoa, hold up. So you're planning to implement the DAO by the end of this year. That's correct?
Yeah, that's our goal.
I love what I'm hearing, man. That's awesome. I really look forward to that. I'm going to be following that closely. That's cool. That's really cool. Building a DAO has its challenges too, as well. So when it comes to challenges, but this is not related to DAO though, but I'm intrigued to understand from your perspective what you would say, like technically, is the most challenging aspect of building a lending platform. What's the most challenging? What's the most difficult thing?
I think the most difficult thing for us previously was testing the liquidation. So it's very hard to test liquidation because you need to basically mock the state of Piss Oracle. And then we have to write custom programs. So basically it's a fake Piss Oracle programs. And then we pass in an account, then ask it to write whatever we want to write. And then testing that takes us entire weeks of work to get it set up and work properly.
Whoa, okay. I did not know that. I can imagine there's a lot of other challenges to it as well. I mean, it's so important that there's no room for exploits or anything like that as well. And connected to that, I also saw that you guys have your own kind of bug bounty. You're not doing this in a collaboration with some other organization, but you have your own bug bounty. And has the bug bounty that is up and running now for the listeners, like if you're good with code, maybe you should look into the bug bounty program of Port that has like up to $100,000 of rewards for finding a critical bug. So have you guys at Port been able to enjoy the bounty program, so to say? Has there been any interesting assistance, so to say, from the bounty program's participants?
Yeah, I think the most recent one where Neodyme finds an exploit in the open source lending protocols, and they notified us. And then we actually apply the open source fix before they notify us because we were looking at the open issue and trying to fix it before we launch. And then another one would be one user notified us a potential economic exploit. So basically, if there's a whale that tries to pump up certain tokens price with a certain low liquidity tokens price, and then that could potentially exploit the protocol. And then we have checked with market makers and amend the issue. So I think there has been I think users are generally quite helpful when they find an exploit. So they will try to notify us, and we actually get to fix certain stuff that we neglect. And at the same time, we also get a lot of front-end bugs report as well that we got to fix shortly.
Well, yeah, bounty programs is a very powerful tool for any project that is interested in having some sense of security for its users. Myself, like, I look at audits and I look at bounty programs, and I'm always cautious if there's no existing bounty program, to be honest. So I was glad to see that you guys have had it running for about 4 months now or something like that, right?
Yeah, and also we are going through a third audit as well. After that, we will do a fourth one. Hopefully we'll get to schedule the auditor's time as well. It's like auditor is quite hard to find these days.
Yeah, I think they're auditors. They're an interesting breed, and I think they got so much work. Everybody wants to work with auditors now to get that nice logo type on the website and still some trust and faith in its user base, right?
Yeah.
But you guys, which audit firms have you been working with so far? I think you have 2 audits, no, 3 audits, 2, right? And then the third is in the making.
2 completed. The first one is done by Brahman System. The second one is done by Kudowski. And currently we are working with a third firm, Slow Mist. And we should expect that to complete by end of this year as well.
I like to hear the Kudowski thing. I'm not like the audit expert, but when I see Kudowski, it brings me some trust, definitely. All right, that's really cool. Like and I'm really glad to hear that myself as I'm using Port Finance that you guys have this approach to risk mitigation. It's really important, and I love to hear that.
Yep.
So we are 30 minutes in to this DeFi Partner AMA. And that means that we could start off with the first little game here for our listeners. So, our listeners, listen up now, because everybody who has the Marinade role, you simply have to write a specific emoji in the AMA with Port chat. And the emoji is obviously the Port Finance logo type. And I'm going to paste the emoji now in the chat. All of you who has the Marinade role, paste this emoji, and then after the AMA is done, I'm going to look at who pasted emojis, and I'm going to include you in a small raffle utilizing like this wheel of names that you've seen me use before. And that way we will pick, well, 2, 3, we'll go with three winners this time. And you guys will receive, those who wins, that is, will receive an NFT from Lefinity. Lefinity.io. It's some friends of ours. Durden, a member in the DAO, is active in this project as well. So it's an interesting project, and I hope you guys will enjoy the NFTs. Well, those of you who wins the NFTs, that is. So if you don't have the Marinade role, you simply go to verify MNDE under the MDAO access category in our Discord here. And you make sure you have 20 Marinade tokens in your wallet, and you utilize the great protocol there to verify this, and then you'll receive the Marinade role. So as Vitek wrote in the chat, do not forget you have to be a Marinator to participate in this little contest with the port emoji. And so thanks for answering all my questions here. And I actually have one last question before we move on to the AMA. And that is, I would love to hear from your point of view what makes Port stick out from the crowd. What makes Port special versus its competitors? Because there's a bunch of different lending platforms out there, right? So what's special about Port?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, and we got asked this a lot. Firstly, I think our position has always been to provide a whole suite of interest rate products. So we don't just want to provide a variable rate lending, which is currently what we have. Next week, we'll be rolling out the fixed rate lending protocol. We are working with some leading market makers to provide the initial liquidity for the fixed rate lending, which we plan to use the Serum audit book. So users should be able to lend out their assets at a fixed rate. So they know upfront how much interest rate they are going to get. And that provides a ease of mind to users and also to institutions. Right now, if you deposit USDC on Port, the interest rate is constantly changing. And then next year, we will be working on interest rate swap. So user can exchange the variable rate they are getting from Port in return for a fixed rate. And then in addition, we are also spending a lot of time improving the user experience. For example, adding the transaction history. And then going forward, we are also working with Chain Crunch, adding liquidation record, and then also other interactions for user interacting with Port, so that they can have a good sense of what kind of, how much they have deposited, how much they have borrowed, etc., etc. So I think that will be I think that's the main differentiator. We are actually building more than just a variable rate lending protocol.
Yeah, well, my comments on that is I really, really, really look forward to fixed rates. So, sometimes I feel I'm going crazy, like multiple times a day looking at lending platforms, like, oh, did the rates increase? Or am I going to get fucking liquidated now? Or so fixed rate is definitely going to make me sleep much better at night. So that's an interesting update. So when do you plan launching that?
We plan to launch the initial version next week.
Next week? What day?
I think towards middle, so Wednesday.
Okay. Wednesday next week, 15th of December. Guys, put that in your calendar if you're interested in fixed rates for lending. That's really cool. Okay, well, that's definitely a differentiator right there, right? Thanks for that, Gabriel. So let's move on then to some questions from our listeners. And we do have some really cool questions here. It's going to be fun which one you pick as the best question in the end of the AMA here. So I'm going to scroll up into the chat here and find an interesting question here. We have plenty of them. Wojtek, you asked about what Port's plans are for 2022. I think we addressed that one previously when I asked some questions. Let's see here. And then K5, we also just addressed your question there as well, actually. We have this one from Kichio, and this one is as follows. Do you think Port Finance could take advantage to collaborate or create a liquidations platform such as Kajura on Terra? Could it be helpful in creating a back coverage and capital in case of massive liquidations? That's a pretty interesting question.
So liquidator. So right now, Port Finance liquidator works permissionless. So the team, we actually runs a liquidator ourselves together with community liquidators. And then we also have an insurance fund set up to actually prevent unexpected losses. And I think the question mentioned about Terra.
Yeah, so he was comparing with Kajura on Terra. So I pasted the link to the question in the chat so you have it there in text as well.
Got it. Yeah, actually, we are collaborating with Liq protocol, and they actually runs liquidator for various, including lending protocol, and then also like margin trading platforms. We actually work with them in case of like extreme circumstances where there's a ton of liquidation happening. I think also, could it be helpful in creating a back coverage of capital in case of a massive liquidation? Yeah, so right now we also have insurance fund collected from fees that we will use for covering losses in extreme cases. But right now we haven't seen any cases that's caused by a slow liquidation, because Solana is so fast. You can just liquidate users. Like
speed of light on Solana, to be honest, like really fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's a good answer to that question. And then we'll have another question here from Serba Alex, one of our team members, one of the chefs. And this question is as follows. I'm going to paste the link to this question as well if I'm not saying it in a good way. But the question is as follows. Do you think under collateralized loans are possible in DeFi? And if so, is this something you're after?
Yeah, I think under collateralized loan is definitely possible. We have seen, say, Maple Finance, they do under collateralized lending with institutions. And then perhaps we can have some sort of credit system related to each user's wallet. I think definitely is possible, but it will probably not be on our map just yet. Right now, our number one focus is to get fixed rate lending launched, and at the same time start transitioning Port Finance to a DAO.
Okay. I'm looking forward to see under collateralized loans myself, but that would probably make me sleep bad at night if I got involved with that myself. So let's move on to another question then. This one is from one of our dudes here in the crew, and that's from Chef Raff. And the question is as follows: will there be any NFT lending? I think that's a pretty hot topic right now. What do you think? Will there be any NFT lending on Port Finance in the future?
We are thinking of that, but we don't have a concrete plan yet. So one way that we could implement it would be to use, say, a floor price. When a user deposits a collection, we use the floor price. But it seems like between the floor price and like the median price, there's a huge gap. So we're not sure if it makes the most sense if we just use the floor price. So we are thinking it probably makes most sense if it's done peer-to-peer. So basically, say the user wants to loan out, say use their Degen ape as collateral to borrow, say USDC, they can kind of start with how much they want to borrow, and then also of their previous collection, etc. But nothing concrete yet. We're just discussing it internally.
I think there's a lot of discussions around the ecosystem regarding this particular topic, right? I've heard questions and discussions related to this several times. Well, so far, from what I heard, nobody's really come up with a solid solution to this. And as I'm thinking about this myself, it's just beyond me to come up with something smart related to this as well. So I can imagine the difficulty you guys have as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential with this idea, but then it needs to get implemented well. It probably takes a lot more work.
Yeah, there has to be a lot of liquidity and so on. It's a grand topic. It's a tough nut to crack. So let's move on to the next question. And I like this question myself from Prodromo. Prodromo, man, you asked a good question last AMA too. So keep it going. And the question is as follows. I'm going to paste the link here as well again. And so with Solana Wormhole bridging more and more assets, are you looking at implementing them and potentially take all the potential business from ETH that will benefit from zero transaction costs on the Solana network?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. I think it makes sense to do lending on Solana than on Ethereum. This is because, as I mentioned earlier, we can liquidate the user a lot faster. So basically, if say if we take Ethereum as collateral, then on Aave or Compound, say normally you can just borrow less because you need to leave more room for error during liquidation. But on Solana, because you can liquidate the user a lot faster, it makes more sense for users to deposit on Solana and borrow USDC, and then use the bridge to transfer the USDC back to Ethereum. So I think long term, I would expect this to happen, and gradually more and more assets come into Solana, and then bridge it back, because they can increase their capital efficiency by doing so.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of an interesting podcast episode that I listened to from, what was it, Unchained? And they had Anatoly there amongst the others, and they were talking about, will Solana be the execution layer and Ethereum the settlement layer? So like they were kind of talking about Solana being some kind of a layer 2 solution for Ethereum. And related to that, do you have any comments on that? Would you see that happening in the future?
Yeah, I think I would expect that different chains will have different things that they specialize on. And I think Solana's, if we truly leverage the speed and low latency, there's a lot of things that can be done better on Solana, and then we can use some sort of bridge. And then to users, they probably don't have a sense. They don't need to have a sense of which chains they are in. They can just do interactions. And then all this bridging and then also things like that get abstracted away. And then they would just perform the action that's best suited.
Yeah, agreed. I myself, I can kind of see this happening slowly but surely. I mean, I used to use Aave myself on Ethereum, and last time I used Aave, I paid like $200 plus just to withdraw some tokens there. So it's just like, yeah, it's like Solana is positioned well to perhaps be some kind of execution layer or layer 2, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so let's move on to another question here. Let's see what we have in store. So Lazarillo, actually, this might be a challenging question, but I'm going to bring it up anyway because it's there. Lazarillo, he mentioned an exploit in port in September this year. How would you mind explaining a little bit more what happened and how you guys took action to mitigate this?
Yeah, so it was a mistake on our end where we changed a variable that's not supposed to change. So we published a more detailed report on our Medium post. So I think if you scroll back to the September Medium post, there's one that explains the situation in more details and also the mitigation that we have done. And then I think you also asked about how many users were affected by the port exploit. We have reimbursed all of the users who got affected. And then the detailed spreadsheet can be found in our announcement channel. So we actually put in all the transaction details for the refund. So refund, I can't remember the exact numbers, but you can check on the spreadsheet around hundreds of users. And then each of them, we have sent the refund transactions. You can also check that on chain. You can find it in the announcement channel in the Port Finance Discord.
Cool. I shared the link to the Port Finance incident report related to that situation. So the users, or sorry, the audience here, you can just visit that poster, get acquainted with how they fix it. And the way I recall it, it was handled very professionally, very quick, and also informative as well. So I was using Port back then, and I didn't feel worried at all, actually. And the way you handled it was just, 10 out of 10. So moving forward, I'm just going to remind our listeners here that you have to have the Marinator role to be able to participate in the raffle we're going to do in the once we end the AMA session. But if you don't have the Marinator role right now and you still want to participate, I'm going to wait a little bit, like a couple of minutes extra to let Grape give you the role if you try to acquire it, because it can take 5 to 10 minutes for Grape to react. So don't stress about it, guys. We have another question here that I think is pretty cool. And that's from GSTech0063. It's one of the recent questions. I'm going to paste the link anyway. And quick question regarding the governance and voting. So as follows. Would there be any whale inhibitor mechanism since most of the tokens is still not in circulation? So when it comes to the governance and voting in the DAO, have you considered some kind of whale inhibitor mechanism?
I think the way that we design the DAO voting mechanism kind of already prevents short-term like manipulators, because the voting power is proportional to how long you are willing to lock your tokens. Say you lock the token for 5 years, then you get certain multipliers. And then if, say, a short-term manipulator wants to come in and they probably get the tokens either via market, and they only want to lock the token for 1 day, then they're not going to be able to manipulate the voting that easily because of his unwillingness to lock the token longer. And for all the users who are willing to lock longer, then naturally they are willing to make a decision that's long-term aligned to be the most beneficial to the protocols, because that way they can get the token appreciation. The token can actually become more valuable. And on top of that, we believe that we have a very professional investors. So all the investors that we talk to are from top-tier institutions, and I'm pretty sure they will be able to make an informed voting decision.
Okay, gotcha. Well, what you mentioned is definitely a way to mitigate potential issues related to whales and governance, definitely. And I think it's going to be interesting for us at Marinade to look at what you guys are doing, since we kind of parallel here also are building out the governance of our DAO and discussing all of these details. Yeah, that's interesting to hear, to be honest. And we have another question here from solbox_dev. And I'm going to paste the link. So the question is as follows. Are you planning some aggressive marketing? If so, when do you plan to do so?
Yeah, we do plan to put more effort into marketing once the fixed rate lending goes live, so that we need to educate the users on how to best utilize it. And also we need to make sure that there's product awareness where user knows that coming to Port, they can not only get variable rate, they can also get fixed rate. And then we will be working with other protocols such as Marinade, and then also some other partners, getting the words out for our fixed rate lending. And then in addition, I think it will also be quite valuable. We plan to integrate with the Port Finance mSOL market, so that user can actually kind of lend out their mSOL in fixed rate.
Yeah, the fixed rate thing, man. I really look forward to that one. But yeah, I mean, it is marketing is important, of course. And you mentioned something interesting there in your reply to that question, which I picked up, and that was the educational part of the marketing. Like you say that you feel that you have to educate people on like how to use Port, or is it something else related to like the educational aspect of the marketing that you're looking at?
Yeah, I think for the fixed rate part, there's a lot of use cases when user want to do fixed rate lending. And then also at the same time, they're able to swap between interest rate. They can swap between a variable rate to a fixed rate. And then what's the best way to utilize that? And then also how to work them on the Port UI on how to do that. So one of the main reasons is that fixed rate lending is still quite early in DeFi. In general, like even on Ethereum, most of the users only knows about Aave or Compound. There are actually fixed rate products such as Notional, Element, or Yield protocol. So that probably requires more educational content on step-by-step workthrough, and also what kind of the creative ways to use fixed rate lending and gain some additional yield.
Okay. Interesting indeed, sir. Interesting indeed. I think the educational aspect of marketing to like the crypto audience is quite important. And in particular when it comes to DeFi and DeFi Legos. There's so many users that are into crypto that are just simply speculating and just holding their tokens in their wallets without understanding that they can actually get the passive return. So the educational aspect is going to be very important, I think, for any crypto project involved with DeFi, right? So I think we have dealt with a bunch of questions here, and there's more questions coming in regarding the marketing, but I think we addressed the marketing questions good enough. So let's move forward to this little part of the contest where you pick the question that you enjoyed the most, or you found the most interesting to answer. Well, of the questions we dealt with so far from the audience, which one did you enjoy the most?
I think the question is related to wormhole bridge, and if it will take potential business from Ethereum is most interesting to answer from my perspective.
The Ethereum bridge question?
Yeah, I quite like the bridge question.
Let's see who asked that question. I need to scroll here to chat.
Prodromo,
man, Prodromo. Yeah, he always comes with these really good questions, to be honest. So yeah, Prodromo, you know what that means. Gabriel from Port has spoken, and you are the winner of the best question of this AMA session. Thanks for that one. So I think we can start wrapping this up, really. And I'm really grateful for you taking your time on Friday to deal with this AMA and explain what Port is all about to our users listening now in the live stream and also in the coming recording on our YouTube channel. And do you have anything you want to say before we conclude this little session, Gabriel?
I think just stay tuned. We've been working quite hard to implement new features. And I think governance and fixed rate lending will be quite exciting. And stay tuned.
Cool. I'm looking forward to the fixed rate lending so much. And as you guys heard, next week, middle of next week, it's going to happen. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And also visit Port Finance website, port.finance, if you want to get acquainted with Port a little bit more, if you haven't already. And obviously, like I always say, like get involved with their community if you got time for that as well. They have a pretty good vibe going on there in their Discord. So I would recommend to check that out too. And yeah, good luck with all these things you planned for. And I will also be, Gabriel, I will also be waiting for the DAO updates. That's one of the more exciting things I heard today as well. So thanks a lot, man. And thanks. So, with this said, we'll just conclude this AMA session. And thanks everybody for coming and listening in. And about the raffle, after I end this session, I'm going to write in the AMA with Port channel the results on who won the NFTs from the Finity protocol. So just give me a couple of minutes to sort that one out. And Prodromo, winner of the best question today, send me a DM with your wallet details so I can send you the prize. And again, Gabriel, thanks a lot, man. And I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye. And bye, everybody.
Bye.